Excuse me. If we were hiding in the woods, oh my goodness, from a predator, oh, that would have given us, like, that would have killed us. I don't know where I was going with that. No, it wasn't really that comedic. No, I'm coughing today. I'm okay now. Ready to talk about not Predator. Ready to talk about Prey?
Prey?
Yeah. So Prey is a new Predator film, and I gotta say, being someone who's a newcomer to Predator, and being someone who had to kind of educate themselves. We are loosey-goosey today. I had to kind of re-educate myself on Prey because I hadn't seen the original Predator, so I literally watched it for the first time for this movie. I really loved the first Predator and actually was really into it, so I could see why it's considered a classic, why it's considered something to be praised. It's really, really exciting. It's really tension-filled, but it has a really nice grounded tone that kind of kept me really engaged. I'm talking about Predator still, but that film had a tone and atmosphere that really kept you engaged and really grounded you with these characters, and you really felt trapped in this atmosphere with the Predator that was hunting these people. And that's, I think, a very hard feeling to capture and to really make you feel isolated when you're in an open jungle, and they do a great job of doing that, and that kind of carries over to here. Thoughts, because you actually have seen Predator before.
Well, yeah, I mean, I grew up watching Predator when I was a kid. I still remember watching it when I was just a little infant. It terrified me as a kid. I was absolutely terrified of Predator. But as I grew a little bit older, and I also watched the other ones, it's been forever since I've seen Predator 2. The lore of Predator is just amazing. I also fell in love with that. The character design, everything when it comes to hunting, being hunted, or being the hunter, I love those themes. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was very grounded. It never really strayed away. The theme and the seriousness, I love the beginning because that alone sets the tone of it. It's serious, and also the time that it takes place in is really brilliant.
I think it's brilliant to make this a period piece because it's something totally refreshing. You get something totally new, while also it gives the perfect excuse to harken back to that original feeling that original Predator gave, which was isolation, but also a disadvantage, especially in a power scale standpoint. This film does a really good job at establishing the threat, given that we're taken back so much far back in time. Granted, we saw in the original Predator how soldiers could use guns and stuff to kind of defend themselves. It still didn't really do a great job because the Predator was just that much smarter and that much more advanced. It does a good job at showing how the ingenuity of the culture of that time period was also really smart, because we really get to see a lot of cool environmental use in the combat and in the action sequences.
We also get more of just practical sets, when you're actually in the jungle, when you're actually out there in the wild. I love the cinematography and what they were doing with it, was just showing the landscape, giving us a bird eye view of just people going through the forest, really building that atmosphere, really building how different everything used to be.
That brings us to the visual storytelling. I think the visual storytelling is on a whole nother level in this movie. I really love that they kept that at the forefront and the focus. There's dialogue, of course, and you get that with the characters, but that was never, I think, the main vehicle to tell the story. I always felt like the camera and our characters' actions were leading us forward and propelling the plot forward. The cinematography and the visual storytelling alone do such a good job at building this world that Naru lives in. You really get to kind of live in her environment and get a feel for her family and what her tribe thinks of her, and I think that also feeds into the thematic use of the story and the idea of the concept of the hunt or hunting. I think it was awesome how this movie kind of explored that kind of side of how humans view hunting and how we kind of explore that in our own cultures, and how that kind of thematically reflects what the Predator does, and how that's even a next step above or even a power scale level. There's a great scene that kind of also establishes through action encounter with another kind of beast that does a good job establishing how powerful and terrifying the Predator actually is when he arrives.
I love what they did with the giving certain details to the Predator. I guess we never really saw. We saw him after he's hunted or stuff like that. It's just small little details that he does. I love how they just give certain information like that. They're showing us, they're not really telling us. Part of the visual storytelling, which I love. I've been thinking of like cons of this movie, and honestly, it's just like I feel like I wish we got a little bit more of like Predator doing things, even though we got a lot in the things that they showed. I absolutely loved. I just wish we got like more of him like picking off, I guess, people. Great. It's just for what it was. I mean, I loved it. I can't really think of any cons, really.
I definitely see what you mean in one sense. Definitely dedicates more screen time to exploring Naru's struggle, the main character's struggle, and their family. Like I was talking about that thematic use of hunting. It definitely spends some more screen time to that instead of at the Predator. But I never thought that worked as a detriment to the movie. I thought it was always to a benefit because I thought it kind of added a little more of a complex layer to the movie. That kind of even is something even the original Predator didn't show, which I like. It kind of added that refreshing take, but I can see where it kind of distracts from. You get less the idea of picking off. They kind of save it for later on in the movie, and then it all goes down, and then you're like, holy shit.
They really do build up the suspense for it, but then once they actually show it, it's just great, demonstrating the difference between Predator and human. It's a great film.
Yeah, I really loved it.
I enjoyed it.
I love that it's on streaming. I wish we got to see it in theaters, but I gotta say, as someone who hasn't even seen the Predator sequels, I've seen the original Predator, and this is my technically second Predator movie. Good shit. Great sequel, man. I loved it.
Yeah, loved it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not gonna act like there are things I hated about it because I didn't. It was good shit.